My son told me not to come on his birthday. He said, "Dad, please just stay away this year." I asked why, but he wouldn't explain. I knew something was wrong, so I drove to his house anyway. When I arrived, I heard music, laughter, and champagne glasses upstairs. But my son wasn't there. I searched the house until I heard a weak voice beneath my feet. I opened the basement door and found him injured on the floor, barely able to stand. Upstairs, his in-laws were celebrating his birthday without him. My son looked at me and whispered, "Dad, they didn't want you to find me." That sentence changed everything. The images shown in this video are imaginative recreations created only to represent the story, not real photographs of the people or events. If you enjoy emotional family stories, hidden secrets, betrayal, and powerful justice, subscribe to Behind Dad and stay with me, because the truth I discovered that night was darker than anything I could have imagined. My name is Robert. My son Daniel was 34, married to a woman named Sarah. I had always tried to respect their marriage, even though Sarah's parents, Richard and Linda, made me uncomfortable. They were wealthy, controlling, and obsessed with appearances. They loved throwing expensive parties. They loved showing people how perfect their family looked. But I noticed something others didn't. Daniel never looked happy around them. Whenever I asked, he would smile and say, "Dad, it's complicated." Then his birthday came. Daniel called me that morning. "Dad, don't come tonight," I laughed softly. "I'm your father, I'm coming." His voice changed. "No, Dad. Please." That was when I knew something serious had happened. I drove there before sunset. The house looked like a party venue. Luxury cars filled the driveway. Music shook the windows. Through the glass, I could see Richard and Linda raising champagne glasses, but Daniel was missing. I walked through the front door. Sarah immediately saw me. Her face turned white. "Robert, why are you here?" I looked around. "Where's my son?" She didn't answer. Then I heard something, 3 faint knocks coming from beneath the floor. I followed the sound toward the basement. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Don't go down there." I pulled away. "Why?" she whispered. "Because you won't like what you find." I opened the basement door. Daniel was lying on the floor. His face was bruised. His shirt was torn. He looked up at me. "Dad," I rushed toward him. "Who did this?" Daniel pointed toward the ceiling. Then he whispered, "Everyone upstairs knows." I looked at Daniel and felt something inside me break. My son had always been the strong one, the man who never wanted anyone to worry about him. Seeing him on that basement floor made me realize how badly he had been hiding his pain. I helped him sit up and asked what happened. He kept looking toward the stairs. "Dad, they wanted me to sign something," he whispered. I refused. I asked what they wanted him to sign. Daniel pointed toward an old desk in the corner. A folder was sitting there. I opened it and saw documents transferring his business, savings, and even the house into a company controlled by Richard. My hands started shaking. "Why would your in-laws want your house?" I asked. Daniel looked away. "Because, Dad, they already took almost everything else." He explained that for months, Richard and Linda had been pressuring him to invest his money into a family business. They promised huge returns. Instead, the money disappeared. When Daniel demanded answers, they threatened to expose private information about him. Then Sarah joined them. She told Daniel that if he didn't cooperate, she would file for divorce and make sure he lost everything. I couldn't believe the woman my son married was part of it. Suddenly, we heard laughter from upstairs. Someone shouted, "Raise your glasses for the birthday boy." Daniel looked at me with tears in his eyes. "They are celebrating because they think I've already signed." I looked back at the documents. "But you didn't," he shook his head. "No." Then he reached under the desk and pulled out a small phone. "I recorded everything." He pressed play. Richard's voice filled the basement. "Once Daniel signs, Robert will never know what happened." My blood ran cold. They weren't only targeting my son. They were planning something for me too. Then another voice came through the recording. It was Sarah. She whispered, "What if his father comes?" Richard answered, "Then we use the second plan." Daniel stopped the recording. "Dad, that's why I begged you not to come." I stared at him. "What's the second plan?" Before he could answer, the basement door suddenly opened. Richard stood above us, holding a glass of champagne. He smiled and said, "Now you've finally arrived." Richard stood at the top of the basement stairs, calmly holding his champagne glass. I had never seen a man look so relaxed while my son was injured at his feet. He told me to step away from Daniel and said everything had been misunderstood. I looked at the glass in his hand and then at my son's bruised face. "You call this a misunderstanding?" I asked. Richard's smile vanished. He told me Daniel had caused his own problems and that I should leave before things became worse. I refused. Then Linda appeared behind him. She was crying, but I couldn't tell if those tears were guilt or fear. She whispered, "Robert, you don't know the whole story." I told her to start talking. Linda admitted that Richard had been planning to take Daniel's business for over a year. But then she revealed something even worse. Sarah had secretly signed an agreement giving Richard control of Daniel's accounts. Daniel had discovered it and confronted them. That's when they locked him in the basement. I felt my hands tighten into fists, but I knew anger wouldn't save my son. I needed proof. Daniel handed me the phone with the recordings. I called the police and sent the files to an attorney I trusted. Richard suddenly became nervous. He tried to grab the phone, but I stepped between them. "Touch my son again," I said, "and you'll have more than a family problem." Then Sarah walked downstairs. She looked at Daniel and began crying. "I'm sorry," she said. Daniel stared at her. "You knew," she nodded. "I thought they were only taking the money." Then she revealed the second plan. Richard had prepared documents claiming Daniel was mentally unstable and unable to manage his property. They planned to use those papers in court and have Richard appointed as his financial guardian. My stomach turned. They weren't just stealing his money, they were preparing to steal his freedom. Then the police arrived. Officers entered the house, while the guests upstairs stood frozen around the birthday table. Richard tried to explain everything away, but the recordings told another story. An officer opened the folder and immediately noticed several signatures that didn't match Daniel's handwriting. Then he looked at me. "Sir, there's something else." He pulled out another document. It had my name on it. I read the first line and felt my heart stop. Richard hadn't just planned to take my son's property. He had prepared papers to take mine too. And underneath my name was one sentence: "Transfer upon death." I stared at those words until they blurred in front of my eyes. Transfer upon death. Richard had planned to make it look as if I had agreed to transfer my property to his family after I died. But I had never signed that document. The officer immediately secured every paper in the room. My attorney arrived shortly afterward, and when he saw the forged signature, he told me something that shocked me even more. The signature had been copied from an old document Richard had obtained years earlier. They had been preparing this plan for a long time. Daniel looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Dad, I'm sorry you got dragged into this." I sat beside him. "Son, you didn't drag me anywhere. I'm your father. Where else would I be?" That night, Richard, Linda, and Sarah were questioned. The recordings, forged documents, bank records, and messages told the complete story. Richard had convinced Sarah that controlling Daniel's money would protect their future. Linda had helped hide the financial records. Sarah had gone along with them until she realized they were willing to destroy her husband. But Daniel still had one question. "Why did they need my business so badly?" The answer came from the investigators. Richard's company was nearly bankrupt. He had been using Daniel's money to cover his own debts. The birthday party wasn't a celebration at all. It was supposed to be the night Daniel signed away everything. Instead, it became the night their entire plan collapsed. Months later, Daniel divorced Sarah. It wasn't easy. He loved the woman she had once been, and letting go of that memory hurt him deeply. But he eventually told me something I'll never forget. "Dad, I thought losing my marriage was the worst thing that could happen. Now I realize losing myself would have been worse." I was proud of him. His business recovered. His house stayed his, and my property remained safe. But the biggest change wasn't financial. Daniel finally learned to trust his own instincts. We celebrated his next birthday together at my house. No expensive party. No champagne tower, just a small cake, a few close friends, and a quiet dinner. Before we ate, Daniel looked at me. "Dad, do you remember what you said when you found me?" I smiled. "I don't remember," he laughed. "You said nobody gets to decide your worth for you." I hadn't realized how much those words meant to him. That night I understood something too. Revenge isn't always about destroying the people who hurt you. Sometimes the strongest revenge is watching the person they tried to break stand back up. If you've ever had someone you trusted betray you, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Never ignore the warning signs. Never let fear silence you. And never confuse money, control, or a perfect-looking family with real love. Because the people who truly love you won't celebrate while you're suffering in the dark. They'll come looking for you, and when your child needs you, show up.